Forget about owning a business. Until you reach a near-death life experience like this, where you're put on a machine to breathe for you because you can't breathe and you're gone. You're not present. Without the machine, you die. And under the machine, you have a heart attack and you're going through all this trauma to your body. It changes you. Fortunately, I came out the other side. But again, it changes you and you rethink everything. Your perspective on life, your perspective on people, your perspective on faith, all of it. It all changes 100x. The crazy stuff that you used to think was so important or that you would worry about becomes far less important because you actually understand what life is when you have it and then how it can go away. And you start to really think about legacy. You start to really think about, if I go today, if I go tomorrow, this got so bad and my life would forever change because once you have what I had, you are now compromised. Your immunology is compromised for life. And the after effects of all of that trauma that takes place, there's arthritis, there's anxiety, there's all sorts of things because when you take the thyroid out of your body, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not trying to be one, but I lived through this and I had to educate myself. When you take the thyroid out of your body, 99% they took out. They leave just a little bit of it. You have to take Synthroid or levothyroxine to basically trick your body into thinking that there's a thyroid. It's thyroid hormone replacement. So what you go through in the change of life like that, not to in any way be, scary in any kind of way, it is beyond anything that I can explain in words. You almost have to live it to understand it. And so this idea to get a place in Florida was twofold. You start to believe, am I susceptible now? My father passed away at 45. My mother passed away at 63. At the time, I was 44 and a half. Or when we got the place in Florida was 2021 and had just been married. That's 5 years later. So I'm 49 and a half. All right, I lived past my dad. Guess I'm on my way to my mom's age. Been tremendous death in my family. I've had all this take place with me. I don't really know what the future holds. You better act because you don't know how much time you have left. I remember somebody that I was very close to. I would repeatedly say, if I'm blessed to continue to live, if I can remain healthy. They finally asked me after me saying it so many times, why do you keep saying that? And you try to explain it. You try to say, because it all changes. And when you stop breathing, when you're screaming not screaming because I couldn't scream, but when you're in the hospital bed and your wife is sitting right there, you're already on an oxygen through the nose and you cannot breathe. If you've ever not been able to breathe, and I'm not talking about, my gosh, I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe, or man, I sneezed 7 times in a row, it was like I couldn't breathe. No, you're reaching for air and it's not there. And you say, I can't breathe. They call the nurse and then they put the cup over your mouth. And you say, I can't breathe. And the next thing you know, you wake up 3 days later and realize what just happened to you. And I was told 7 people ran into the room. They threw me on a gurney. They rushed me out. And they intubated me, put me on life support because I couldn't breathe because I had sepsis and pneumonia and I was about to die. So when you go through that, you're always wondering, when might my last breath be again? Is this, like, I was legit thinking about this. Can this happen again? Will this happen again? What do I do if it does happen again? Holy cow, it changes you. 180 upside down and all around. I don't know how better to explain that. So Florida, from the standpoint of, get to a little bit warmer place, get away from some of the stuff that was going on to a degree, have a little bit of, wow, if this is it, this is kind of where I want to go. That was going through my mind. Secondly, and as a big part of it, it was really 50-50, is that the future of the business in terms of what I was doing and what I had planned from the advisory standpoint and some of the other things, the hotbed for it is in Florida, where I'm recording now and where I live now full time is Florida. And as I've gotten around more and now live here full time for the last year, my gut was right. It is all here. And so I decided to not only, my wife and I, not only decided to move here part-time, I said, this is an opportunity, because there was some writing on the wall already that was fully in place about the business and the challenges of it. And in Michigan and in a post-COVID era, and you're losing key people, and there's different things going on that is harming the business by basically $60,000, $70,000 a month lost. I mean, you're talking $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. This is not peanuts. This is very significant money. These are lives. At that time, 22, 23 employees, you got a lot. And I signed up for it. I'm not complaining. I signed up for that. You understand going in, and it wasn't my first rodeo. You just never anything this big. I didn't have anything on my own prior to this that was as big as this would become. But I had a significant business, multiple businesses, but one that was significant in the past that had periods where it did really, really well, where I learned a lot. But this is a whole nother level. This is a whole nother scale. And I'm all in. All my chips are in the middle. We're in the middle. Everything. From your credit, your savings, your life, all your work, blood, sweat, tears, everything. But meantime, people just think you're getting rich. No, that's not how it works. It's just not. And when you do it legally, and when you do it above board, and you have to have all the proper insurances, and you have to do things the proper way, and you try to stay a cut above, it's extremely hard to run business, especially today. And in a COVID and in a post-COVID era with inflation and everything, which I'll get to in a second, oh my gosh. So the writing was on the wall. I started to see it. I thought there's got to be an easier, less labor-intensive way that I could recruit a different type of candidate to help educate seniors and advise seniors in a different way. That was always the plan, but I sped it up because of the health challenges. So twofold, move to Florida for health, and then eventually get an office in Florida and try to ultimately longer term at least, that was the future of the business. Instead, you got all the people that are talking when they don't know the story, and you can't really share it. And I'm talking about outside the company, the outside people. You're going to go and you're going to be in Florida and you're going to run the business. You don't even know what the facts are. You don't even know what the strategy is. You don't know why the strategy is what it is. You don't know the inner workings of the company. You don't even know about these things that I've just discussed here, because that's just something you keep in house. The house is not there anymore, so I'm discussing it now, and I'm going to use this as a teaching tool, and hopefully this helps somebody else in a post-COVID era, because it's totally different now, and it isn't going to get a whole lot better in that respect of what I'm going to talk about here in a moment. So inflation strikes so hard, and seniors are the most affected, and the pivot must begin. I had already begun it, but now it must really begin. Now it's like, all right, figure out a way, get an office in Florida, and see if you could bring your very best employee there with you, build it out. Because we were advanced, our specialty was advanced, and most of that spending was cut. What I mean by that is we were very niche. We were higher priced, but the level of what we were providing, literally second to none. It was done at such a level that it just didn't exist. Anyone could get a mover, but this is so much more than that. If you're working with somebody who's 70, 75, 80, 85 years old, there's memory challenges. There's the attachment challenges of leaving a home after 30, 40, 50 years. That's your life. You built families there. You built children there. Grandchildren have played there, have either lived there or played there or visited there. That's your everything. And you're expected to walk away from that and go into a senior living community where you're now going to abide by the rules of somebody else. And you're going to follow their rules when you've been independent all this time. To actually take somebody from that independence, and you're not totally losing it, right? There's ways that, depending on your health level, you can maintain some of that independence, but as you advance or you decline in health or you advance in age, there are things there, such as the independent to the assisted living to the memory care or even advanced care, to where people tend, you are more in a structured environment. People are assisting you to a degree, making decisions for you, families making decisions for you, and it's a little bit less. It's a little bit, it's more of people making decisions and a lot less of you making those decisions. And the reality of somebody saying, this is me giving up, like this is, if I'm leaving my home, this must mean I'm giving up. So the sensitivity of that time and what that takes to do that the right way, it's holy cow, next level. To make a serious attempt at doing that the right way, unbelievable, unbelievably difficult. So in 22, 23, 24, the following happens. Working very hard to pivot and create other divisions. Relocated the greatest team member I have ever had in Florida. Her and her husband meant everything to us. And throughout this entire debacle that ended up happening, I lost one of the greatest friends I've ever had in my life. 100% the greatest employee I ever had of my life. My true right hand, my true left hand, my everything as far as a staff member. That, quote, work wife, they call it. Absolutely unbelievable person. That's the first part of it, is the person. The worker part of it, the employee, the staff part of it, that's secondary. What she meant to me and her husband meant to me and Catherine, my wife, and I, is impossible to explain. And it's impossible to explain how difficult it has been knowing and living without these folks in our lives and in my life, you know, because of all of this. So I relocated her to Florida. We started up what was supposed to be done, execute the plan. Little by little by little, things continued to still happen. I even began PB Sports Talk on the side, experimenting with it because, and I even talked with her about it. I say, I really think that, you know, if this senior thing doesn't work, this can be more of the future. And I learned so much from her, technology-wise, graphics-wise. Like, I created all of this that you see here. Me personally, at that time, I didn't know how to do any of it. She did it all, and then some. Okay, and so I knew she was a great person for that. And if it didn't work, that this would be it. So in 2024, let me just speed along here. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. In the beginning of 2024, the longest tenured person of 6 years leaves the company. Yeah, 6 years total. And the person arrived making $34,000, left making $100 in 6 years. And the only reason they were at 100 is because they wouldn't go to the next level. Were unwilling to take the final teaching, and they could have been well beyond that. Half, 150, even 200, but just didn't have it. Wasn't no longer a fit. Maybe it was never a fit. And I'm that fixer kind of guy. You know, you feel like you can change somebody. You feel like you could give. And I know this as a coach. You don't put greatness in somebody, you pull it out. And I kind of got away from myself in that I really thought that I could learn or that I could teach somebody. And I did teach a lot, but there was a limit there that the person was no longer willing to go or could go. And I kept on trying. And it was one of the biggest mistakes that I ever made. I'll have to live with that the rest of my life, that I didn't pivot and just let the person go. And while he did a lot of good for the company, and I mean a lot of good, 6 years is a long time, extraordinary in so many ways, and possessed the talents and abilities in certain areas that I didn't have or didn't have the patience to do. And lots of credit goes to him. After he was gone, I learned that for the better part of 6 years, he was sabotaging the company. And I heard that on very good authority from many, many people in the buildings and around the buildings that we serviced, that he was actively sabotaging the company while working for it. I mean, I just don't even know how that makes any sense. All right, here's the real tricky part, and I'll round this out. So I replace him with somebody who's working in the field, who was with me for 3.5 years, part-time, wintertime only. When this happens with this person, well, let me rephrase that. While this person was still with the company, I gave that person who was part-time $80,000 salary plus as a mover in the field. You could ask any moving company anywhere. You don't pay a mover $80,000. You just don't. It's not the slot for it. Even if they carry some management type experience or expectation, $80,000. Plus his tips was about $12,000, $92,000 employee, never worked for a company in his life, started with me at, I think, 31, ended at about 35, roughly. And I'll get to why that's important in a moment. Never held a job working for another company, was self-employed in a family business. And we basically had to teach him everything, almost everything that the person knew, because they had never had a job, a real job. $80,000, bring him into the office, off of the truck, out of the ice, the snow, the rain, the heat, the cold, the labor, my back hurts, getting older, right? It's a hard job. I did it. Very, very hard job. Even though it wasn't residential, it was senior, very, very hard work. So there's a trade-off. And you know when your day starts, you know when your day ends. There's no more, you might be here till 6, you might be here till 7, you might be here till 8, you might even, though it happened rarely, you might be here till 9. Nope, you're going to leave at 4:30. You're going to come in at 7 and you're going to leave at 4:30. So it was a huge holy cow moment for this person, a chance to just do amazing things. Within 2 weeks, I was being bugged because the tips were now gone. And I had this conversation. Chelsea, I will mention her name, the one I spoke of, greatest employee ever. We sat him down and said, you will walk away from the $12,000. It cannot pay you a $92,000 salary to do this. We believe in X amount of time you can get to that. Basically a year, I think is what it was. But you will walk away from the $12,000. You will end up with an $80,000 salary, and you will have to work towards it. And if you do what you're supposed to do with commission, you might even get there much sooner. But we need to do this, and you need to learn how this all works. He said, yeah. And we actually pulled back, and we said, are you sure? You want to half this? Like, we're willing to bend here and do it half this way and half this way, so you don't feel the 12,000 or so loss immediately. No. I can do this. This is what I want. Okay. Are you sure? Because people who know me, I'll generally say that 3 times. Are you sure? Like, are you really sure? Do you fully understand what it is we're saying here? And it's a short-term hit sacrifice for a long-term gain. Oh, yeah. This is what I want. I know I can do it. I can learn. I can do it. Okay. All right. Enough said. So we did it. Within 1 week, the person was asking me for $12,000 more. I said, I can't do it. We had this conversation. Well, can't you show me do something in good faith? Good faith. This person has 0 experience in any work type environment. You're making $80,000, an unheard of amount of money for what the role was. You're getting an opportunity to come inside and learn under some really good people, and we're going to help you elevate your career to heights that it probably wasn't going to happen quite like that in the past. And by the way, he came out of a labor business, came with us full time in a labor business. And then we got him into the office and we were going to work him and mentor him and guide him and train him and help him grow to take the other person's position. You're talking about, you want me to have a show of faith. So like I did so many times, and if I could go back and do it differently, I would. I cave to a degree. I give him more money, guaranteed. That was a mistake. That was a big mistake. It was so bad that this person actually thought that a 1 week's PTO was 7 days. He was issued 2 weeks of PTO at the time, and he thought that that meant 14 days. And when he found out it wasn't, and that's not how it worked, and why in the computer underneath his name, it showed 10 days and not 14, he went basically ballistic. That we cheated him, that we lied to him, that we stole from him. This is the type of nonsense that was going on. And I was paying somebody $80,000, $90,000 to do this. Shame on me. That's what you call need, replacing somebody because of need and because they were already privy to a lot of the way we did things, and they didn't have to redo it all over for somebody that was 50,000, let's say, and take the risk of that person coming in at 50, not working out. You got to go find somebody else and keep doing that. And that costs money, as so many of you business folks know. So this was ongoing. This was literally ongoing. There were other things like that. It just was turning out to be not a fit. To the extent that then I was being accused, as was Chelsea, of lying to him when he first declined insurance. And this is important, and I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole here, but declined insurance, and that when you tried to get him to understand that when you decline insurance, we cannot add you to the policy then until the new enrollment period starts. So it's now the world is against me, and you this and you that, and what are you guys doing to me, and this woe was me thing. So from we're going to put you in this position and asking for the raise constantly, to this final day, which was on, I thought I had it marked there, which was, let's see, May 17th, February 4th or 5th, went into the new position, May 17th. That's how long it lasted. Very short period of time. And we explained to him on the phone, no, that's not. And once he took that step and accused us of cheating him, that's when I didn't take too kindly to it. And then things did not go very well. So we're on a three-way call, Chelsea, myself, and him. We're explaining that. She's trying to explain it. Then, of course, I have to basically, I didn't have to, but I basically tell him to stop. Basically, don't treat her that way. I call him out on it. I demand it stops. I tell him he's being a hothead and that he is hot-headed. Ultimately, he quits and hangs up. 10 minutes later, literally 10 minutes later, this text comes from his mom. This is a 34-year-old man. This is his mom. This is how you treat your good employees by not paying them and talking to them like they are a piece of blank. I will not allow you or ever forget how you treated my sons. You are crazy and a horrible businessman. Get ready to move your own people, as no one will want to work for you, and I will make sure no community refers to you and destroy you. Have a good life. What she's referring to in the money is things got really bad. Admittedly, things got very bad. I was paying him too much money. I had too much money out. Inflation and costs were increasing. Sales were not following suit. They were declining. I ended up giving him more money even than I should have. And for the first time ever in the 10-year history of the company, I wasn't able to meet payroll or thereabouts in that time frame, in that month period of time-ish there. And two of the key employees, him and the gal who voluntarily would forego some money for the future betterment of said company. This is the first time ever. It was one of my proudest things that I ever did, was like, you're going to hire all these people. You're going to pay. And that, by the way, post-COVID era, this is really important. And it's happening now today still, not anything to do with this, but with other people. in the post-COVID era is like, we're leaving you. And then there was this sudden transfer. And then when the people would come back, let's say it was a $40,000 employee, that's just for speaking purposes. That person now believed that they were worth 60, 65. And you had to have that conversation. We're talking about a 50% increase, literally. And they were getting it. And if you didn't give it to them, they were going someplace else and getting it. So if you had a full staff and they were all trained, and you're in a senior sensitive business, which is not easy to find people for, part of what you do is in a labor intensive business to do. So you're going to ask somebody to work with a senior and everything that goes with that, do labor and everything that goes with that. And then in Michigan, the elements of rain, snow, hot, cold, labor, up and down ramps, all of that. What do you have? You're going to pay me what? The government just paid me $47,000, $48,000, $49,000, even $50,000 to stay home and do nothing. You're going to keep me at 40? That doesn't work for me, because I've been trained, right? I've been trained that I'm worth something more because they told me I am. You must think the same thing, otherwise I'm gone. So what are you going to do as the business owner in that? Knowing what I've explained here that most people don't know, labor, senior, elements, put it all together. This is not somebody working who we're talking about in this segment of the company, because there was two parts. There's office and there's field. That field person, so who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? A lot of them don't have licenses. A lot of them, that's a whole nother story for another day. Reliable people that you could depend on, that you can count on, that are going to come in, they're going to be all in it. So hard to find in any business and any type of area. Now, it's not 100%. There's still a lot of good people out there, but really, really hard to do, really, really hard to get for this type of work. So I paid more. And it caught up. It caught up. Inflation through the roof. Things cost 30, 40, 50, 60% more. And people are not wanting to pay the price that you had before COVID, or no longer pay the price that you had before COVID. Not an increased price to match that, to make up and compensate for that. They don't even want to pay the same price anymore. Now, no longer is your specialty important to them. They're going to go to the big dogs, so to say. The big guys who are in a price war every day, that sell by the hour and don't put all the extra into it. They're now willing to forego that and go and pay those rates. Now, what do you have? Now you see why I was saying the writing on the wall. Now you see how I forecasted and saw what was coming. The overall eventuality of it, it came. So 2 days after that text comes in, the best employee that I ever had resigns via email with no notice. That's May 17, 2024. Hit me out of left field. We went to their home. We called. We did everything we could. No answer. Never even had a chance to talk about it. No discussion about it. Nothing. Just left. It just had become enough. It just had become too much. And I didn't then, but in hindsight and learn and you're away from it, you realize how difficult it truly was. So for the next 7 to 8 months is a full effort to try to save it all. And it proved to be too much to overcome. And so assets of the company. Oh, and one other thing. Oh, and it's not in here because I could put a million other things in here. During all of this inflationary craze, in this post-COVID craze, we had 4 trucks. They were all older. They were all owned. I owned them free and clear. I had no truck payment per se. Had the insurance for the truck and then the maintenance for the truck. So you have your line item. You know what those 4 trucks essentially are going to cost you on average per month. Some months you'll get hit with $7,000 in repairs. Some months you might skate by with $500. Overall, you know what your average is. And when those big months hit, man, you better be in a place to be able to handle those. They're not cheap to repair. As things went up and up and up, as the age of the trucks went up, up and up, I mean, you get a brake job where they have to take off an entire rear axle. and they have to change calipers and they got to do this, and this is $3,500 for a brake job. And then the trucks are older and they can't find parts. And then the trucks are no longer worth what the repair is, even if they could find the parts, which in the end there, it was getting to the point where we had parts trucks on the grounds. Okay, tow this over there, take those parts off, put it on the truck that is salvageable. And then you ended up having I think I had 2 or 3 parts trucks. And then you part those out. Those parts are gone. They are no longer available. What are you going to do? Can't source the part. Can't fabricate the part. What are you going to do? All 4 trucks break down at the same time, and either A, they don't have the parts available for them anymore, or B, they are extraordinarily expensive. As in like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 repairs. And do that repair, and you're likely to have another one that might cost $1,000 to $2,000 a month later, 2 months later, or it could be another $4,000, or it could be on an area of the vehicle or the truck that cannot be repaired. So you're basically throwing money in a pit, and you're not going to get it back. The truck can become inoperable and out of service quick. So what do? We rented, and then we leased brand new trucks. And you need to get to 4, right? Because 4, the way that it was, 4, you needed 4 all the time, 3 operating, and 1 rotates out when 1 goes down and 1 goes into the shop, and you have a fallback. And if it ends up where 2 of them go, where you're going to rent 1 and you're going to live that way. Get new vehicles and have none of those older trucks, then you need 3. So it was first 1 and rent. The renting costs more than what the lease payment was. So rent 1, or lease 1, lease a second, lease a third, $7,000 to $6,500 wraps, beautiful wraps on the trucks. The insurance costs more. All of it's more, and more. Within 4 months of the 3 new trucks in place, not 1, not 2, but all 3 were driven into something and sheared the top of the truck off, the top corner of each of the truck. Multiple thousands of dollars in repairs. You start to think to yourself, is this ever going to stop? You think you fixed one thing and 3 other things happened. This is all taking place, and it's like, this is just never going to end. You just can't afford it. It gets to the point where you can't afford it. You can't trust. There's somebody operating a $100,000 truck, in some cases more than that. Lives are at stake, equipment, cargo, it's all at stake. People care less. It's just it turns out to be a really, really, really bad deal. And so it gets to the point where the company, basically losing people, it can't afford to pay for it anymore. The engine that was built, the beast that was built, that needs to be fed every day, every week, every month, every quarter, that's gone. And so, all right, what do we do? All right, got to basically close it up, but there's still value and there's assets in it. There's an incredible website. There's an incredible client base. There's an incredible Google ratings review of 4.9, hundreds of reviews. There's a long history of the name. It's stamped in the area. There's tons of domains, domain names, URLs that are surrounding the brand, and the brand was very, very strong. But if you don't have the capital to keep it going, and you don't have the people, which this was very, very labor intensive in an environment where people don't want to even work, let alone do labor, what do? So I turned to one of the giants in the industry, had conversations. We worked on a very small transaction. The real value of the transaction comes in the legacy of the company, in that in the end, that it wasn't for naught, like in terms of takeaway money, like an exit strategy and exiting out and you're getting paid this. That didn't take place. Very, 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 very small amount. It was more, hey, the brand is going to continue. It's in good hands. The name, which meant something, it's in good hands, but there's really no payout. And that's what happened. So back to the, I'll close with this. Back to the lady's comment, and I've blacked out her name. Anybody who's familiar with the situation, you can see the initials there, and you can, and by the way, this person worked for a second cousin of mine. and he allowed this to take place. Pretty amazing how that works. The second son that she refers to in there, but the first son, by the way, she messaged me and asked me to do her a favor and give him a job 4 years prior. So I did that, and I brought him along. I paid him we paid him a lot of money. We brought him along. We gave him a chance. $80,000, $90,000. The brother who I had wanted, who it didn't work out, later things went full circle. Years later, 3-4 years later, had an opportunity to get him again. Not quite sure what I was thinking, to be honest with you. Another one of my fatal errors in this company. $125,000 to come in and be an executive in the company, take a small ownership stake without any capital in exchange for that. Basically going to take his depth of experience, knowledge in the industry, perhaps some doors that he can open that maybe we couldn't open, would be in lieu of a payment for said equity stake. Let me put it to you this way. The top 4 people that were employed in the company came to me and asked me to remove him. This person that she says, amazing people, that her kids and what I did to her kids, 4 people came to me to remove that person. I don't remove people because somebody thinks that it should be. I take that in. I figure out all the whys to it. I figure out everything that's going on. And let me just say this part. His very first day, he showed up 40 minutes late. 40 minutes late to a company you are taking stake in, and says, oh, I didn't think it was going to start until this time. What you don't understand is when you become an owner of something, you are there. Beat me there, for crying out loud. You just started. Beat me there. Someone's going to pay you $125,000, give you a stake in the company, and you need 1 day remote because you had a child 6 months ago, which I agreed to. You don't show up 40 minutes late. You don't show that message to everybody. Nevertheless, work wasn't getting done. Production wasn't getting done. Total mistake on my part. Total misfit. And then the final straw came when one of the staff members let me know that in a phone conversation with this person at about 3:00 in the afternoon, they heard a baby crying. That baby crying was in the backseat of his car because he decided to cut his day short, and who knows however many other times it took place, where he thought that on the company's dime and on what I laid out for him, that he could do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted to do it. And after internal conversations, and I learned more about what he was not doing, that I wasn't all fully seeing, it came at the overwhelming vote of those around me to remove him or reduce him. I made an attempt to reduce him. He decided to leave. Okay, fine. Then when it happened with the brother leaving, then the mom went crazy and went and did scorched earth all over. And essentially, as you could see it, I will destroy you. I don't take too lightly to those words. Those are very serious words, that you're going to destroy me, which means you're going to destroy me and my wife and my family and everything we've worked so hard for. And believe me, we've worked so hard. And we actually treated your sons amazing. We gave them something they never had before. And so those things took place. The 10 years was an amazing experience, unlike anything I could ever comprehend. The roller coaster ride of through all of that. But that's the story, folks. And there's parts in there that I didn't put in there. There's parts in there where I was stressed and that things get very, very difficult. And I'm a results type guy, right? Everything that I do, it is set up for an outcome to happen, a result to happen. When those results don't happen and you're paying people a salary of any amount, let alone a very high amount, the expectation is there that it is to be delivered on. This is what we all do, what we all have done, what we do for other people at other companies. For some reason, in my sector of the industry, because of where they came from, and I'll explain that at some other day, I can't get into that now for the reasons I mentioned before, is that there's some feeling of entitlement and that this is just allowed. I don't know where in the world you can go and just cut your day short without asking or telling anybody and go pick up children or go take days off or go say you are someplace, but you're really not and you're someplace else. I don't know of a place where that's allowed without first discussing it in advance. And if you are a part owner of a company and you just started with that company and you're making $120-something thousand, more than me, at the time. And you think you could get away with that? And then you see a text like that? Basically, almost $250,000 assigned to both of those, what would be sons. Sons is the word that was used. So, add it all up. I invested in the wrong family. I invested into some of the wrong people. I made some of my own weaker decisions. And now I've learned. And now we move on. And this is part one of this. And part two, the rest of it, some more juicy stuff. I guess you'll just have to stay tuned. And what the industry is really all about and how it all actually works, it's alarming because it's totally different than any other business I had ever been in, studied, researched. Very, very different. I'll leave it there. This has been, I hope, an eye-opening experience for anybody who is maybe you are a business owner, maybe you aspire to be a business owner, a solopreneur, just you, or maybe you and one person is a lot different than you in, say, 5, 10, 15, 20, where people rely on you for a livelihood. They don't just rely on you for a paycheck. It's a career. It's not just a job. It's a life. It's a lifestyle. It's a career. It's a future. It's different. You start talking 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. Hopefully you get to 8 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years. It's all in, man. It is all in. And if you're not prepared to take the hits, and I was, and I'm not complaining about those hits, this is more informative and as a teaching tool. And as here's the real truth, that's what this is designed for. You know, I knew this all going in. My wife maybe didn't know it to the degree that I did, but I knew this going in, that this was part of it. This is what you sign up for. If you don't want to have any parts of this stuff go on, then go work for somebody else or go sit in a cubicle someplace else. This is not for you. As the great Mickey Redmond, Red Wings legend, announcer, and much health going Mickey's way, it's not a place for a nervous person. Business is not easy. That's why owning a business, running a business, but owning a business is not easy. That's why the majority of people don't do it. And 80% or so of the world is employed by 20%. That's why. One of the reasons why. One of the big reasons why. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult. What you take on and what you have to put before you is enormous. People always think the employer is the one who's making all the money and let's take, and let's tax. And I know there's some people that will see this, Joe and other people. You get it, man. You know what that means when you take all the risk. At the end of the day, each of those people, they could go get another job. At the end of the day, I have to look at myself. I have to look at my wife. I have to look at, this is what I had. This is what I now have. And it doesn't match. Because a lot of those things took place. There's a perfect storm of 10 years. Like, I don't even know how you can start 10 years and end 10 years. And as the person told me in December, that's a lot to absorb. Man, if I had $500,000 just sitting on the side, which, by the way, I'll just say it, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, all of my savings, all of our future It's all gone. It's start over again. Knowing what I know now. And now I'm doing it a different way. And you see a couple of the brands up there. We'll see if it works. But it's not reliant on all of those amount of people. It's able to reach people at any portion of the world, let alone the country. And we'll see where that goes. And I have other things in process, and there's things behind the scenes being done that I can't get into or won't get into. But that is essentially, oops, let me get this off of the screen here. That is, that's the story of the 10 years. That's the truth. And all the little ants that run around and say all this false stuff and this scorched earth and this, let's see if we could destroy them, in this narrative that in politics and in the media, mainstream media, wants to turn everybody against each other. And you know what? Quite honestly, they're succeeding in a lot of ways. I wanted to put a stop to this. People will believe what they believe. People now have this factual evidence. I have nothing to hide. Literally nothing to hide. I'm accountable for what I did right. I'm accountable for what I did wrong. Point blank, period. That's the truth. I was good to a lot of people. I helped a lot of people, and I was happy to do so. And I will do it again. And I will do that. I will always be at the forefront of what I do. I'm just this, I guess that's just what I'm going to do. I would like a little piece of the pie too, but I'm always going to try to help others before I help myself. Maybe that's wrong of me. There's a lot of people have said, worry about yourself first and take care of you first and all of these types of things. And you got to take care of yourself. And throughout that 10 years, I did enjoy some nice things. No question about it. Worked very, very, very freaking hard for it. Morning, afternoon, night. You're on 24/7, 365. You're going in on Christmas Eve. I remember somebody in my family said to me on 4th of July and other things, they said, what are you going in today for? Because you have to go in. Well, why do you got to go in? No, there's things you got to get done. And sometimes when the phone's not ringing or there's not everybody around, you have the opportunity to go get a bunch of stuff done. Well, why do you get up at 4:30 in the morning? Well, because my staff started at 90% of the staff started at 7 a.m. I'm getting up at 4:30. I need to be ready before they're ready. I need to help get them ready. I don't get them ready by showing up at 9 o'clock when they're there at 7 o'clock. I don't get there by waking up at 7 and strolling in. That wasn't how I was. I needed to be up first. And that's a lot. Honestly, that's a lot for the people around somebody who's willing to do that and knows that they get out at 4:30, up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. The people believe that they then have to do that. And that's the straight. They already have to be there at 7. Some were 8, but most were 7. And it's like wherever they have to drive from, they're already up way early. So that's why I got up at 4:30. That's why I will go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night with no life, because that's what the choice and decision that I made. That's what comes along with it. And that isn't the first time that I did that or the first business that I did that. If you're going to open up a business, guys, gals, anybody, anything significant that's more than a hobby, you got to be prepared to take those hits and go whenever, however. It's all about how you set it up to be. But if you want to do something significant, you really want to make a mark and you really want to try to create wealth, creating of wealth generally doesn't happen for somebody else. It happens for yourself. If you want to make that decision, what that will require of you is for you to go places and lengths that probably you never have and nobody would ever ask of you to do. You will have to ask that of yourself. And you won't just have to ask that of yourself. You will have to complete that. And if you fall down, and you will, you got to get back up and you got to get back to it. No matter who thinks you can't, won't, shouldn't, tells you all kinds of nonsense. You have to believe in your plan, in your strategy, in your direction. You have to believe in you. At the end of the day, no one on this earth will believe in you as much as you believe in you. No one. I don't even know if a spouse, they can support you. It comes from within. You have to have it within. when you don't want to get up, when you don't feel well, when you're just having a bad day, again, you start talking 2, 5, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 people. Hey, you're managing your own life. And now to a degree, you're managing their life. Their life becomes a part of your life. They're sick. They got in an accident. This is going on. That's going on. That bleeds in to your life. So you have your whole life to manage and live, which more now than ever before, it seems. It's harder to do that. Even when you do have money and plenty of it, it helps, but it can be very difficult to live today versus 20, 25, 30 years ago. Things were simpler. It's, again, a choice. Some people live, very minimalistically, and I'm not even talking about things, just with health and with society and phones and distracted society and social media and politics and just the horrible things that tend to go on now versus even 20 years ago. It's not easy. So you take all that on and you take everything else on with it. That comes with it. You cannot go like this and compartmentalize and put one over here and one over here. It doesn't work. Got to take it all on. I welcome that. I like that. Maybe I'm getting older now and it's not as easy to do. Maybe I won't ever do it at that level. I doubt that I will at that type of level with that many people. But to do anything of significance, it's going to take more than one of yourself. 1% of 100 people's efforts is sure better than 100% of your own. I think that will stand the test of time forever. I can't do it all. If you're starting a business, you can't do it all. You will need help. You will need good help. Harder than ever to find. I'll leave you with this. When you are selecting people, they must fit your strategy. They must fit your plan. They must fit in general. They must share your vision to some degree. They will never care as much as you do unless they have stake in the company like you do. They just will never care. That's not necessarily their fault. It just is. If all of their chips are not in, then they're not going to be all in at the level and degree that you are. And so to expect them to be would be a false expectation. That was one of my mistakes, if I'm being honest. I thought that getting somebody to grow and grow and grow and continue to make money was always what I wanted to do. If you were at 20,000, how do I get to 30? If you were at 60,000, how do I get to 70, 80? If you were at 80, how do I get to 6 figures? If you're at 6 figures, how do I get to 100 and a quarter, 100 and a half? How do I get to 200? Is that possible? How do I maybe gain an equity stake? That's what I grew up around. That's what we were motivated by. People today are not motivated by that as much. They're motivated by living their best life more so than money. They go without cars. They'll drive bikes instead. They don't do fancy dining. They don't do fancy jewelry. They don't do any of that stuff anymore. Alcohol sales are down through the floor. It's more minimalist. They don't even want a 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot home anymore. Give me my 750, my 1,000 square feet. I'll live by myself. If I meet a girl, we'll do what we got to do with it. We'll go upgrade a little bit to about 1,500, 1,600. It's a lot different now. So in today's world, if you're opening a business or you're trying to grow a business, please know that they will never care as much as you care unless you give them or they earn a piece of it. And that's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's our fault if we expect it to be different, especially at a time where that's not in the fabric of how people think. People believe they should be given something now and that they are entitled to it, not that they need to go earn it. Therein lies a massive difference in 25, 30, 35 years ago and now. What are you going to give me? And I want more than you even give me. And I might just do it with half the effort. That's not everybody. It's not a full big brush. I'm not painting the whole canvas with one felt swoop. It's not. Not everybody's like that. But the amount of people that do think like that are greater than ever before. Those are the facts. And I think that they can't even be argued, to be honest with you. But that's the 10-year journey, folks. I hope that this helped. Scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner. There'll be a lot more stuff, not necessarily this particular type template with a business journey, but there is a lot of content being worked on behind the scenes that I don't want to divulge quite yet, but I'm working relentlessly at it with everything I got and managing multiple things going on to try to, make that living and get this thing up off the ground. It is growing. Subscriber base in YouTube is growing. That's what that does. Takes you to our YouTube channel. Please smash that subscribe button. Hit the notify button. Share it with somebody. There will be more of PB Mentor stuff here coming in. The PB Sports Talk is there. There's not a show right now once a week. There'll be other content like this coming in its place for now. And then at some point, we'll do the 1 week episode again. The weekly, hour and 20, hour and a half, kind of like this. We'll come back at some point. That's not right now. But keep it locked. Please do. Keep it locked. I'd love to have you guys aboard. Share your story. Interact. Leave something in the comments. Appreciate you all watching. Again, I hope that this helped on some even small level. Refer back to it. I thought that this came out pretty well. It's very real. It's authentic. It's truthful. It's honest. Because if you're not honest, then you're not anything in this world today. Because at the end of the day, there's so much mistruths and misleading, and it's like a matrix. Literally like a matrix. So people tell you one thing, and they go behind your back and do another. Oh, by the way, let me leave you with this. This is really critical. The person who hated working for that person that tore them to shreds, the one of the sons is now working for that person again. The person who worked for me for 6 years, who was on the blunt end of that person going around and making sure that we lost business and it affected his livelihood, and said if it was the last person on the face of the earth, they would never work for them, and it's the worst possible person. He's working for her. The person who came to me and led the way for the one son to get gone, he's working for him. That's his direct report. You cannot make this stuff up. Literally, you cannot make this up. So the person you despise and all this hubbub that you create, you end up full circle back and you're working for the person when you said, no one on the face of the earth would you ever work for. You'd work for anyone, anything. You would never be associated with that person because they're this and they're that. And you're working for them. I'm not making it up. Those of you who are in the know, you know who I'm talking about. You know where they are. Those of you who are not in the know, I'm telling you the truth. It's crazy. It's legit crazy. People will say anything, it seems, not all. Some people will just say anything. They will do anything to get ahead, and they'll tear down whoever's in their way. And then even they'll tear down the people, and then they'll go back to the people, and they'll somehow make I don't know, employer-employee relation. It's craziness. It's madness. I don't even recognize a lot of parts of this world. But again, I hope that this helped. Everybody have a great day. Again, scan that QR code, subscribe, hit the notify button. Stay tuned for a lot of great information coming. Thanks for joining, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.